Many years ago, I had a client come in and hire me to supplement his Brazilian jiu-jitsu practice with a little extra strength and conditioning to get him in shape for a big regional tournament that was coming up. But as it got closer to the tournament, his performance, motivation, and energy started to really tank. And we were checking off all the boxes, plenty of food, good sleep, all that kind of stuff. But what ended up happening was this guy was making the #1 mistake that many martial artists make when it comes to their strength and conditioning practice. I'm going to cover that today, as well as 2 others that I often see people make, and I've made many times myself. And if you want to learn more about this, consider checking out my book. Link is down below, Bodyweight Training for Martial Arts. So this big mistake that my friend was making was that he was not being very respectful of something called the interference effect. This happens all the time in the martial arts world, where a lot of martial artists will spend so much time in their strength and conditioning that they actually have less over for their actual martial arts training. And this is understandable where it comes from, because a lot of times we're heard that, if you have the right strength and conditioning program, you're running hill sprints and you're doing 1,000,000 push-ups a day, that's going to make you a better martial artist. But I want to make something very clear today. All the strength and conditioning in the world cannot possibly improve your martial arts training 1 iota if your martial arts training itself gets compromised. If you sacrifice that class time and the energy you're putting into that for time in the gym, it's going to be detrimental. Now, I'd love to be able to make some sort of general recommendation like no more strength and conditioning than twice a week or an hour or whatever, but there's so many variables it's impossible to say. So here's the recommendation is add in some supplemental strength and conditioning, but that shouldn't be the bulk of your training if you're really serious as a martial artist. If you notice that your energy, motivation, and effort you put into your martial arts training is starting to go down, compromise and cut back on your strength and conditioning. Piggybacking off that is mistake number 2, which is using the wrong kind of cardio. And I did this myself for many years, and trying to get in shape and having good endurance, because of course as a martial artist, especially competitively, you need to be able to have that stamina. But the mistake a lot of people make is doing too much long, slow style distance cardio. What happened all the time in taekwondo, where people would come into the ring and they'd be like, okay, I'm a marathon runner, I run 10Ks, I can handle this, and they get totally gassed out in 45 seconds and demolished by someone who was seemingly in less shape. Naturally, because most of the time in martial arts training, we need endurance for much more intense but shorter duration activities, usually rounds lasting 2 minutes and so on. So for that, we want to make sure we're doing cardio activities that suit the same type of energy use by the body. Things like hill sprints, skipping rope, kettlebell complexes, circuit training, that sort of thing. And the third mistake that I used to make, and I see many martial artists make this, especially in striking arts, is not using enough of the speed continuum in their strength training. So when we're doing push-ups and pull-ups and doing other types of strength exercises, it's kind of like the steady state bodybuilding type movement, which is great. But usually as martial artists, we need to move our muscles either really quick and fast and explosive, or we need to hold a very tight isometric hold, kind of like when you're holding someone in wrestling or jiu-jitsu. We want to make sure that we're training both ends of that spectrum of really tight and barely moving at all, and then super fast and extremely explosive. And kind of getting that middle ground is fine, but it's kind of meh. So that's why I always recommend for the martial artists employing isometric techniques to some point in your training. Good thing as a warm-up or as a finisher. And of course, explosive power, things like plyo push-ups, simple jumping, jump lunges, that sort of thing for explosiveness and power in the legs fits the bill nicely for that. And again, that's a good finisher for leg training. But beyond those, I would say you can pretty much add in supplemental strength and conditioning most any way that you like, and it's probably going to work just fine. It's not exactly an exact science when it comes to being stronger and more capable as a martial artist, because again, most of that stuff comes from the actual martial arts training. As long as you have basic strength, movement patterns, push, pull, and squat, and it's not having an interference effect, it's creating more of a high intensity endurance cardiovascular style training, and you're getting some degree of isometric and explosive power, then you can pretty much have your training fit whatever type of schedule and program you like, and it's probably going to work great for you. Once again, check out my book, Bodyweight Training for Martial Arts, to learn more about this. Let me know if you have questions down below. Like, share, subscribe, and all that as well. Thank you very much for watching. Be fit and live free.